All right, good evening. We'll call the Planning Advisory Committee meeting to order. Any disclosure of pecuniary interests and general nature thereof? Seeing none, I've got some opening remarks. The public meeting is being heard by the City Council Planning Committee, and public notice has been given in accordance with the Planning Act. The citizen appointees joining are Mr. John Baltutis, Mr. Tyler Fenton, Mr. Paul Jennings, and Ms. Sarita Van Dyke. They may ask questions and participate in the discussion to assist in recommendations to City Council, but may not make motions or vote in connection with the public meeting. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Planning Committee or City Council before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of City Council or the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Belleville before the related bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to a hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. Comments received at this public meeting, as well as written comments, will be considered by the Engineering Development Services Department in the analysis of the applications that were part of the public meeting tonight. For further information on how to provide comments to the city regarding an application from this public meeting, please email planning@belleville.ca. A recommendation report will be brought forward upon receipt of all agency and public comments in the future, and any person wishing to be advised of the Council Planning Committee's recommendations regarding today's applications are requested to leave their name and address on the appropriate notification sheet on the clipboard beside the podium. With that, we'll move to public meetings. 4.1, Notice of Complete Application and Introductory Public Meeting for Proposed Amendment to Zoning Bylaw Number 10245 as amended, lots 15, 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, and 22 of Registered Plan 812, Part 1, Belleville. Owner is Quinte Healthcare, Belleville General Hospital. Agent is RFA Planning Consultants Incorporated, and the file number is B-77-1202. If staff could present the application, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. So the property is located on the east side of First Street, west of 2nd Street, and north of B Drive. The property is developed with an existing staff parking lot for the Quinte Healthcare Belleville General Hospital, which is located entirely within an existing site-specific community facility zone. The application proposes to rezone the portion of the subject land zone residential second density zone to community facility zone to facilitate the expansion of the existing staff parking lot for Quinte Healthcare Belleville General Hospital, and for the reduced required lot aisle width from 7.3 meters to 7 meters. This application would facilitate the expansion of the staff parking lot from 0.8 hectares to approximately 0.71 hectares and provide an additional 102 parking spaces. The official plan designation of the subject land is community facility. Staff have received correspondence from one member of the public in opposition of the application. This will be included and addressed in a future staff report. Back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? Going once, twice. If you could activate the microphone there. Yep, just press the button. There you go.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Titus Lee. I'm here presenting on behalf of RFA Planning Consultant for Quinte Health, and joining me are Dave Pym, who is the manager of Occupational Health and Safety and Security, along with James Hildenbrand, who's the Director of Development for Quinte Health. If I may click to our presentation here.
The gentleman at the back will give you a hand.
So I hope that everyone can see the presentation up here. Gonna give a couple notes on the site itself. The hospital has expanded in capacity over the past 10 years with expansions in their ICU, oncology, pediatrics, and additional medicine unit. However, at the same time, the parking has not been expanded. And so currently the situation for parking is that there are shared parking for visitors, patient, and staff in the 2 lots fronting Dundas Street, with 3 additional lots for staff on the east and west sides, as well as the south sides. And these lots are used at different times of the day. There are also visitors parking on the street right now due to staff use of the shared lots, and the staff entry and exit into the lots is fairly limited to certain hours of the day. Speaking about the site, it is, as was noted earlier, designated as a community facility according to the official plan of the City of Belleville. And this has informed us in our planning rationale for this application. I'd also like to note that it is currently zoned community facility and residential second density, and is surrounded by highway commercial, residential second density, and the Belleville General Hospital zone. So pre-consultation was conducted with the City of Belleville's planning staff on June 12th, and they issued us a checklist for development applications that would be for the rezoning application. And we're also notified that the site plan is to follow the rezoning of this property. A removals drawing and proposed works plan, as well as a conceptual landscape plan, have been prepared by Jewel Engineering. I'll be going over them in the following slides. And RFA Planning has prepared a planning rationale and filed the application for rezoning in October of this year. The application was deemed complete in November, and we are at this meeting today. So currently, the site is being used as parking for staff at the Belleville General Hospital. This is carried on for over 20 years on this property. There is a gravel parking area on the south side that was used for temporary parking during various hospital construction projects. I also want to note that the stormwater on the areas outside of the existing parking lot are not managed currently. And there are concrete barriers along the south side that prevent parking there. There's also a privacy fence that partially wraps around the residence at 6 2nd Street in the southeast. And this parking lot currently has 102 spaces. Our proposed plan will expand the lot to 209 parking spaces total to assist in alleviating the parking demand by hospital staff. This increase of 107 spaces also will be accommodated on this lot, and there will be landscape strips provided along the perimeter of the lot and around the lot line with number 6 2nd Street, in accordance with the city's zoning bylaw provisions. The site will be illuminated by light standards with LED fixtures with 0 cutoff, so that means that there will be no light spillover from the parking lot to adjacent properties. And we'll also feature pedestrian islands at the end of the rows, as you can see here in the gray. This will allow for safe passage of pedestrians through the site as they head to the hospital. So our planning rationale also entailed a review of the provincial policy statement, which applies to all planning applications, and all planning decisions must be consistent with the PPS. So in our review of the PPS, we note that this rezoning would support the growing operations of the hospital, and that the parking lot is located in a defined settlement area, which shall be the focus of growth and development, and that the landscaping that we're providing along the lot would address local impacts of a changing climate and maintain compatibility with number 6 2nd Street, the residence, which is considered a sensitive land use. Upon our review of the City of Belleville's official plan, we found that it was also consistent with the official plan policies, as the location is deemed appropriate according to its current community facility land use designation. The parking lot will continue to be operated in association with the hospital, and the existing vehicle access will be maintained from First Street. There will be no access from Second, North, or Bay Drive. This also represents coordinated development of multiple parcels. So looking at the City of Belleville's zoning bylaw, it was first passed by City Council in 1977, I believe, and had been amended over 650 times. We note that the site is currently split zone. There had been a temporary use bylaw to allow temporary parking in some portions of the site. However, this rezoning application would permit the entire site to be used as a parking area in association with the public hospital. Other requests that we are making with this rezoning include a parking aisle width of 7.0 meters for parking spaces. Now this aisle width is deemed appropriate by the 2023 draft zoning bylaw, which has been circulated to the public and is also currently an existing standard for the Township of Thurlow's zoning bylaw. All other provisions will be met or exceeded, such as the parking space size and the planting strip width, which are explained on the following slide. So as you can see on this chart, our proposed site plan and will meet all the provisions of the zone except for the parking aisle width. Hence, we are asking for a site-specific exception. This includes the parking spaces dimensions, which are 2.4 by 6, and the landscape strips, which will be a minimum of 1.5 meters around the street line, as well as along the property lines abutting the residential zone. So to summarize our presentation, proposed rezoning is for a parking lot used in association with the hospital, and this has been deemed appropriate by the official plan based on its current community facility designation. And the proposed reduction in the drive aisle width meets the standards of the 2023 draft zoning bylaw. This proposed change will also accommodate the 107 additional parking spaces that are planned for this site. And our site plan application will be filed subsequent to approval of the rezoning. This site plan application will entail a grading and drainage plan as well as a lighting plan. And the landscaping will be finalized at that stage as well. Would there be any questions I can take?
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Any questions from committee members? Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Mr. Lee. Either yourself or Mr. Pinn, is it Dave Pinn from?
Dave Pim from Quinte Health.
Okay. Now, you referenced the city's official plan, and I note under 3.11.2 sub 2, sub B, parking lots, service areas, and outdoor activity areas should be located so as to minimize the effects of noise and fumes on nearby residential properties. And I don't think it's missed by anyone who looks at the map that this place, the house at 6th Second, will be virtually surrounded on 3 sides by parking, or at least mostly surrounded. Is there any, what are the efforts to mitigate the effects of noise and fumes on nearby residential properties?
Well, thank you for that question. It's undeniable that that property will be surrounded by parking, and I would note that currently it is virtually surrounded by parking as well, with vehicle parking on the street.
Yeah.
And with our proposed plan, there will be landscaping provided around the lot, as was noted earlier. We also note that this landscape buffering is intended to reduce the street parking and to reduce the fumes from the parking. As for light pollution, all the light fixtures will be zero cutoff.
If I may, further to that point, can you just explain a little further the light fixtures and how they will be zero cutoff, as you say, because at one point I had a property on Bridge Street that it was adjacent to Eastminster United Church, and they had a parking lot light that was right outside my bedroom window that I had to have virtual blackout blinds to keep the light out. Is this what sort of lighting are you proposing here that would obviate? Because in a letter I have from the property owner at that address, they're quite concerned about lighting would be so bright it would light up the house, quote unquote.
So at this point in time, the property will be subject to site plan control. A photometric plan will be prepared at site plan stage, and that would illustrate the light, the light that would be emitted from those fixtures, if I may, and show what would be the light levels at all areas of the site and the differences between them.
So they would be, through you, Mr. Chair, they would be directed at the parking lot per se, and are you saying that there would be very little ambient light that would sort of bleed into the property, if you will, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, so there will be no direct light from those lights. The only light would be reflections from the items that are on the property itself.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Alsop?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and great presentation, Mr. Lee. And certainly any of us who've either lived in that area or been through that area have noticed the parking issues that can arise at Quinte Healthcare, not just on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Street, but also on McDonald Avenue and Dufferin Avenue for those that live towards that end of the street. So my question relates to the total number of parking once this, if it is approved, once it goes through. So the addition of 107 spots means that parking lot will have 209. Do we have a sense at sort of peak staffing levels throughout the day, how many staff spots are needed, and how far this goes in terms of meeting that number?
So I've been informed that currently there are over 200 staff on the wait list for parking, and that this is an interim plan to address that shortfall. Staff at Quinte Health do have a plan for additional parking in later years, but we see that this is the most economical as there is already a parking lot on that property with controlled access gate, and that the Quinte Health also owns the properties around.
Okay, so the expectation that this would go about halfway to covering off the current wait list,
To some, yes.
with more solutions to come.
Yeah, portion.
Great, thank you. Yeah.
I see a gentleman behind.
To that, Dave?
So, good evening, everyone. Thanks for taking the time. So, just recognizing that 100 spaces for a staff lot at the hospital actually doesn't equate to 100 people. So, with continental shifts, people working 12 hours, the usage individually of that parking lot actually doesn't equate to 1-to-1. It's more like 1 to sometimes 2 or 3. So, with the addition of 100 spaces, we may take 200 staff off that wait list just because of the way shift work. It depends on the amount of staff that are working straight days versus the amount of staff that are working nights and afternoons. I would suggest if you drive past Belleville General at 8 o'clock this evening, you'll find the parking lot is actually quite empty. But during the day is when we have this kind of critical problem. So it's not a 100 spaces equals 100 staff. The amount of staff that we'll put in for one vacant space is quite a bit higher. It just depends on the role that a staff member has at the hospital. So I would suggest that this will actually help that issue that you're talking about quite a bit, and probably a lot more than just 100 staff.
Great, thank you, because certainly it is a 24-hour operation, so there will be times when the parking lot is almost entirely empty,
Yeah.
but then, yeah, during peak operating hours when everyone's there, you will have a bit more of a pinch, and so the expectation is that a large number of those people who are on shift work will effectively carpool with each other?
No, so when shift workers coming in, right, so they'll have a regular, but the issue at Belleville General really is the expansion of daytime service, outpatient services, things like our oncology department, or our children's treatment center, which has expanded. I know Stacy's done some communication about that previously. So the hope is to get some of those daytime staff members out of that visitor lot, as well as the continental shift workers who are perhaps working part-time in that group.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Van Dyke, did I see your hand?
So just to confirm, through you, Mr. Chair, the south side where there's the cement blocks, how many does that side specifically hold, or will it, for parking?
Well, I believe staff had prepared an illustration that shows the existing. I can go back to show what is existing right now and the additional spaces that would take up the space. But the gravel lot would be completely regraded and paved.
Including because there's a portion that's gravel, but then there's a portion that's also sod, correct?
That portion to the east will remain as it is not economical to put additional parking spaces in there right now, given the space constraints.
Okay. And the follow-up question through you, Mr. Chair, is when we're looking at Second Street, which is essentially, even though there's not access through Second Street, there, the parking will go up to the road, correct?
The parking spaces, you
The
mean?
parking spaces will go, like all that green space will be eliminated?
So those will be arrayed along Second Street as well, within the confines of the lot line.
And will there be some sort of fencing, because I'm just noticing that directly on the opposite side of the street, there is a line of houses, a complete line of residential properties. And so, would there be fencing so that when people are pulling in to park, that their houses wouldn't light up?
That is not something that had been brought up to us by city's planning staff, but it will be finalized at site plan control stage.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, are you good?
I think so. Has there been, I don't
Go
know if I can ask, has there been any discussion of underground parking with layered parking up top? I know it would be a significant cost, but if we're looking at expanded services throughout Quinte Healthcare and over the years, that maybe there could be a portion that they're not so close to the residents. I don't know if that has been a discussion.
I will defer to James on this.
Good evening, everybody. James Hildebrand. I'm Director of Redevelopment at Quinte Health. So we've kind of looked at it, but it is very cost prohibitive, even short-term, long-term, in terms of that level of investment. And so underground would especially be more challenging. We've not really looked into it just because it is very difficult to kind of really propose that. And again, if you do anything like a tower or anything there, it would just be more imposing, I guess, at the end of the day too. We've looked at adjacent properties, either down, I think, Bleecker Street. There's some property there, but that was not property we own, as well as the adjacent property, which is the old factories or the old kind of government research buildings, which I know there are for sale and so on, but that's a whole different kind of challenge for us in terms of either procuring the land. We've looked at maybe even temporary, but that's not a relationship. We've been able to kind of foster, I guess, enough to be able to create parking there, and we are quite landlocked, right? And we continue. Our master plan includes actually increasing the size of the building in the long term, still to be determined, and it's a really long term. We're talking 15, 20 years down the road. But we continue to expand. Our volumes and patients have increased to a level that we're always growing, and that factor comes with it is staffing. And so both of those are currently kind of at a stage that we're really being challenged very much on both supporting our staff and our patient population. I wouldn't say that the future could bring in a tower, but I've done this research on building other additional parking, and it just becomes very cost prohibitive in the long term.
Correct. So one more follow-up question is, because we're looking at expanding and you know, essentially the parking is actually getting further and further and further from the hospital, right? So you have staff walking, you have patients who are sick that are walking. Has there been any, and I understand that it is a significant cost, but has there been any discussion in taking the existing parking that's already close to the hospital and turning that into underground and tower parking?
Probably not. Again, this is something that the Ministry of Health does not fund, so it would be self-funded completely. It would never pay for itself in terms of charging people enough for it. So again, it just ends up being a very cost prohibitive approach to doing it, and harder to keep maintain and for the long term. I wouldn't say it's out of the question in our longer term plans. Again, the facility master plan that we have is about 5 years old. Our leadership is brand new and changed over. We've got a new strategy. We are creating a new kind of clinical service master plan and looking at our kind of long-term strategy and trying to see what options would be. I would not say that we can look at that and actually bring that to, I think, to the organization and see how we can kind of best accommodate it so that we can increase capacity. It's just, you know, again, building on top of it and having ground parking is the most economical way of still allowing for parking at the ground level and still allowing us to expand in terms of the property footprint that we do have currently.
Right.
Going up with the building, it's just, it's a challenge for us, and considering the cost constraints that already we're experiencing with just our level of staffing and the level of volume of patients that we have, you know, it wouldn't be the first priority for us to invest our own funds into parking, you know, despite the need and despite understanding that that would kind of solve it in a certain way, but it would still, I think, cause us to be challenged in being able to support it long-term, financially primarily.
Yeah, I'm assuming this would be something double or triple the cost?
Pretty much.
Pretty much, so it would need some capital funding or whatnot. Okay,
Significant,
thank you.
Councillor Enright Miller. Try one more time.
There we go. Thank you through you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Lee, for the presentation, gentlemen. Realizing that this is for staff parking, but thinking sort of long-term, was there any allocation for any handicap spots in this plan, or was it a requirement? Thinking possibly this could at some point turn into public parking as opposed to staff parking? Was it considered, or was it a requirement?
Yeah, if I can, just as we're going through the designing process, because again, this is about building capacity in our visitor lots for those accessibility spaces. I also manage our occupational health department, and so when we have staff with challenges with accessibility, we actually accommodate them in the visitor lots. We can give them very close access. Again, it was brought up earlier, this space is on the adjacent side of a road, and certainly we don't want visitors with accessibility to have to navigate that road. So I think if we were going to look at an accessibility expansion, we'd probably look at areas closer to our main entrance or at the WCA, because they are very ground level and has those services close by, so we can make sure we're as accessible to the public as possible. This lot in particular will be used by a lot of our clinical staff that are coming in for afternoons or evenings, as well as our daytime staff. So, you know, we'll prioritize patients and their families and visitors first, and give them the shorter walk in for sure. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fenton.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, gentlemen, for the presentation. I had a quick question about stormwater drainage. Obviously, we're really close to the bay here. We're adding a large impervious surface that kind of grades to the south. I didn't notice anything in the attachments existing. I think you might have said that the drainage plan is to be developed. I'm just wondering, are there existing stormwater drains on the existing parking lot? Are there stormwater drains that will be added? Is there, are we able to tie into an existing system there?
Yes, certainly the stormwater from the site will be enhanced with our proposed development. Currently, I believe that there are only drains for the paved portion, and so that means that you have the gravel lot, you have even along the streets on 2nd Street, you have stormwater that's just running along ditches. So during site plan control stage, there will be additional stormwater infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from community members? No? Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? And I'll ask a third time, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? And I'll ask one more time. Anyone wanting to speak in opposition of the application?
Well, I own the house.
Okay, sorry, yeah, if you're welcome to come up.
Yep, well, I own the house that they're surrounding.
Sorry, if you could just give your name, please.
Dennis
Okay.
Aquafredo. So my concern is, it's gonna be surrounded. And I don't think you'd wanna live there. So I'm in opposition to it.
Okay,
It's bad enough now with the noise.
okay. Any questions from committee members? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And I have a resolution that sorry, do you have a question? Yeah, we'll come back around. I get a resolution that the Quinte Healthcare Belleville General Hospital application B-77-1203 be referred to the regular Planning Advisory Committee meeting for consideration. Moved by Councillor Alsop, second by Councillor Enright Miller. All in favor? That's carried. 4.2, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw 3014, 1497 Harmony Road, City of Belleville. Owners Daniel and Carrie Colangelo. File numbers B-77-1203. If staff could present the application, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the property is located on the north side of Harmony Road, east of Shaw Road and west of Bronk Road, known municipally as 1497 Harmony Road. Consent application B-1923 granted provisional approval to sever one residential lot for a surplus dwelling on the southwest corner of the property. As a condition of consent, this application proposes to rezone the severed parcel to a rural residential zone and the retained parcel to a site-specific prime agricultural zone and hazard zone. The special provision of the specific prime agricultural zone will prohibit new residential development and recognize a reduced lot frontage of 58.5 meters. The official plan designation of the property are agricultural land use and environmental protection. At this time, staff have received no correspondence from the public regarding this application. Back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application? Going once, going twice. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? Going once, twice, third time. Okay. Resolution is that Daniel and Carrie Colangelo application B-77-1203 be referred to the regular Planning Advisory Committee meeting for consideration. Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Alsop. All in favor? That is carried. I need a motion to adjourn this portion of the meeting. Councillor Enright Miller, Councillor Millette, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to the Plan Advisory Committee. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest, general nature thereof? Seeing none, reading and confirmation of the minutes, resolution of the minutes of the Council Planning Committee and Planning Advisory Committee meeting held on November 6, 2023 be approved. Councillor Alsop, Mr. Baltutis, all in favor? That's carried. No deputation, correspondence. Can I get a motion to receive the correspondence received in the clerk's office? Mr. Jennings, Mr. Fenton, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Referrals from the public meeting. 6.1, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10-245 as amended. Lots 15, 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, and 22 of Registered Plan 812, Part 1, Belleville. Owners Quinte Healthcare, Belleville General Hospital. Agent is RFA Planning Consultant Incorporated, and file numbers B-77-1202. Resolution is that report number PP-2023-50 dated December 4th, 2023 regarding notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10-245 as amended. Lots 15, 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, and 22 of Registered Plan 812, Part 1, Belleville, County of Hastings be received as information, and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering and Development Services Department. Councillor Alsop, seconded by Mr. Jennings. Any questions or comments? Mr. Baltutis.
Just one for clarification for Mr. Fenton's question earlier about the drainage in the existing parking lot. There's quite an extensive drainage system installed when we built that.
Any other questions or comments? Yep, Ms. Van Dyke.
So I know that I already asked the question about building on the existing lot. And I'm just wondering if it's something worth exploring, because if we're looking to the future, and as we continue to expand, is this something that we should be investing in now, instead of buying up all these properties and more and more and more, making the parking farther away not practical, and as we expand, continuing out instead of looking at investing down and up. At least looking at what that would look like, and, you know, at least we know what the cost is, and if we need to be raising funds for it, that we do that.
Well, that would be up to Quinte Health and what they decide on their capital plan, but I'll refer to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, further to Councillor Carr's comments, you know, the raising of the funds and the acquisition of properties is all done through the hospital organization and not necessarily through this this committee. These lands are all designated community facility, which does permit that expansion of the parking lot. It would also permit the you know, a parking structure that you're discussing. The lands further surrounding that area are designated residential, so that would be a bigger official plan amendment and not something currently supported, and wouldn't be just a zoning amendment. So I don't foresee that expansion quite happening like that, but you know, the existing proposal is just for this area, and it would be up to the hospital to come up with an alternative plan.
Councillor Enright Miller.
Thank you, Chair, through you. My only concern again is for the homeowner that's left surrounded with the lighting. We're told that the lighting is going to be proper, sort of downdraft for lack of a better word, not impede on a house that's currently there. Can we add any safeguards, or can we have staff kind of look at the application that's being proposed and see if there's any alternative? Because I think what may happen is once it's built, there could be some issues, and then the horse is out of the gate. Then what do we do? Thanks, Steve.
So just to give some context of lighting plans, I know up to maybe 5 years ago, and I know that Councillor Millette talked about having a light shone in his yard or his window, and it is very frustrating because I know my mother lives on a schoolyard, and when they redeveloped that, the same thing happened until they expanded again, and then they had zero cutoff. So it wasn't a requirement in the city of Belleville till about 5 years ago, so it is a requirement now. So it's actually pretty easy to do because the lighting consultant that sells you the lights will do that lighting plan for you as well with zero cutoff, but it is a requirement for our site plan process now.
Okay, thank you. Just, I think anything we can do to try to safeguard it would be beneficial to all parties. Thank you.
Yep. Councillor Alsop.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And just further to that, you know, the concerns that Mr. Acquafredo expressed, I think we can all understand why that would be frustrating to be completely surrounded by parking, even though there's some of that going on now on the gravel lot is with the expansion that's proposed here. We want to make sure that some of those things that they mentioned in terms of fencing, deciduous and coniferous, not carnivorous trees, that would be problematic for entirely different reasons, that those sort of things are located around the property line if it is to move forward in the best way possible to block out any extraneous noise and fumes and things of that nature. And I believe that the concept with the lighting cutoff is effectively in the same way that high beams on a car work, where you can direct the light in a certain range and so it doesn't filter over and diffuse out into neighboring properties. So I think that'll be paramount as well, but making sure that we're doing everything we can to shield that property from the parking that would be around it, I think would be not only the correct thing to do, but certainly beneficial to that property owner.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 6.2, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw 3014, 1497 Harmony Road, City Belleville. Owners Daniel and Carrie Colangelo. File numbers B-77-1203. Resolution is that report number PP-2023-51 dated December 4th, 2023 regarding notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 3014, 1497 Harmony Road, City of Belleville be received as information, and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering and Development Services Department. Moved by Councillor Brown, second by Councillor Alsop. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to reports, 7.1, staff recommendation report for proposed zoning bylaw amendment for bylaw 10245, 363 Front Street, City of Belleville. Owner applicant is Cento Commercial Incorporated. File number is B-77-1201. Resolution reads that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council. That application B-77-1201 to amend the City of Belleville zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended for 363 Front Street, City of Belleville be approved as follows. That zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended be amended by rezoning the subject land from general commercial C2-6 zone to a site-specific general commercial C2-55 zone with special provisions to permit one dwelling unit on the ground floor, to require a minimum of 60% of the ground floor area as commercial space, to require a minimum commercial floor area of 100 square meters along the prominent street-facing side of the building, to incorporate the residential parking relief granted by minor variance A 10-23, and to further grant relief for one additional residential parking space that cannot be provided on site. Somebody move that. Mr. Baltutis, Mr. Fenton, any questions or comments? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to staff, if I understand the report correctly, the rights of use of the private laneway that was in dispute during the public session is probably likely going to have to be dealt with as a civil matter. Is that my understanding?
That would be correct.
And so it could, and again, reading the report, I just want to confirm that if the determination of the use of the private laneway, if the use of the private laneway is deemed to not be allowed, that would have implications on, and we would do it through the building permit process, is that correct?
There would be implications in the building process, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? See none, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, and information matters. Resolution is the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment monitoring report dated December 4th, 2023 be received. Moved by Councillor Wright Miller, seconded by Councillor Alsop. Any questions or comments? See none, all in favor? That's carried. General business. Any items for general business? Councillor Alsop.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a very minor and quick observation that, is it possible to get some of the staff members' name tags? I just noticed we have a new gentleman here tonight, did a fantastic job with his presentation. He's got a folded over Post-it note. We have a number of other new staff in the planning department that don't have name tags. Director Ashton is currently Dean Hustwick. You know, if there was some room in the budget, I think it would be beneficial to everyone, and that way we might be able to address our questions more specifically and get everyone some name tags.
All right, well, failing that right now, Director Ashton, would you like to introduce some of your new staff to the committee?
Okay, so yes, we do have quite a bit of new staff lately. We've been short-staffed for quite a while, and so we're happy to sort of be able to continue with the work of providing additional housing and non-residential development. So I think, so there's here is from approvals as well as the policy section. So I'll start down at the end of the table or at the furthest end. This is JJ. He is started with us for a few months, and he works sort of with customers as they come in and reviewing plot plans and doing customer inquiries and learning lots as well. So next to him is, I'm really being put on the spot of remembering people's names, but Nathan Giannopoulos. I know. That's why I got last in here too. Nathan Giannopoulos with a J, and he is he is our new development review engineer. So we're looking forward to speeding up the review process. This was a vacant position for at least a year. Jarrett beside him would know because Jarrett had to sort of pick up, do two jobs for quite a while. And so Jarrett's been with us for quite a while. He's Glidden. He is, we could bring his brother here too at one point in time, even though he's in the engineering section, but he's the better Glidden brother, he likes to say. So he is our development review engineer as well, and so he also works on a lot of studies as we're doing stuff such as the Loyalist secondary plan update to make sure we have appropriate servicing. Beside him is Greg Pinchin, who's I think he's maybe our most senior person here in EDS. Now
That'd
that
be
we've-
senior tenured, right?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. And Kumar, he is just finishing up at Loyalist College. He's been working with us part-time. He has an extensive subdivision approval process, and so he is making the transition, and I believe it's Monday you're starting, next Tuesday you're starting full-time with us, and he is going to be in the approvals section as a principal planner. And of course, Andrew here, he is our principal planner as well, but he's switching from approvals to policy. And as we sort of embark on finishing up some extensive reports or updates to studies, and we have more studies to be initiated. And Tom Deming here, he is our acting policy manager. This home position is senior principal planner of approvals, and so he, starting next January 15th, will make sure that all our rezoning applications and stuff go very, very efficiently, and we try to provide for lots of housing opportunities and development. And I'm Stephen Ashton, Director of Engineering and Development Services. And
She has a name tag. We know Katie.
Katie, she is our deputy clerk, and she's taken over for Matt McDonald. So she's doing the minutes, and she publishes them right away and stuff too, so she's great as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for putting me on the spot.
If you've noticed, if you've noticed during the meeting, Councillor Alsop, that Director Ashton is very quick to point down the line, right? So anyway, but no.
And Dwayne, he's back there. Sorry, your last name. Winter. Winter. So he is our new he's in our communications department, and he's going to be focused on our website update. And I just met with him today, Paul, and I said, we have this really tough counselor, and he wants to make sure all the tracking for development related statistics are kept up to date, and so he's going to lead us through that process starting at the beginning of next year.
Very good, excellent. Thank you for bringing that forward there, Councillor Alsop, and thank you, Director Ashton, for all your work as we close out this year. You and your department have done a fantastic job, and as you pointed out, we've achieved a lot, and while we were shorthanded. Now that we're firing on all cylinders, I'm expecting even greater results next year. In terms of, and no pressure, but again, we don't build, we approve. And listening to the staff here tonight, I appreciate the fact that we'll be well on our way in terms of working with the private sector to get homes built. So thank you, staff, for all your work. Committee members, thank you very much for the last year. We've achieved quite a bit, saw a lot of approvals, and of course our zoning bylaws getting closer and closer to the finish line, and certainly appreciate all the work that you do representing the community here. Nothing else for general business. I just have closing remarks. The Planning Advisory Committee's applicable decisions will be forwarded to City Council for consideration, forming part of the agenda for the City Council meeting to be held. And with that, I need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Alsop, Councillor Enright Miller, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you.